All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
All right, so when we last had my colleague Tom Chibnall on the program, it was very fortuitous because he was on, I think, the same week that OSHA and the National Labor Relations Board had published their Memorandum of Understanding, which is designed to facilitate interagency cooperation and strengthen the agency's partnership to promote safe and healthy workplaces. This was on literally a month ago, when OSHA and the NLRB signed this Memorandum of Understanding. It's not uncommon for federal agencies to generally work together when appropriate circumstances arise, but these MOUs that the agencies have been signing recently really outline specific means and methods for the agencies to cooperate and coordinate their efforts to, as they say, protect employees, or we might say on our side, to come in and investigate the employers. And so while OSHA and the NLRB have historically engaged in cooperative efforts and have entered into prior MOUs, this 2023 Memorandum of Understanding from October 30, 2023, right before Halloween, expanded that cooperation and really strengthened the efforts of the agency's partnership to promote safe and healthy workplaces through protecting worker voice. That's what they said there. And so this new MOU provides for
protecting
outreach.
Workers' voice.
Yep.
That's an interesting phrase to me.
It is, I agree. This MOU provides for outreach that would explain federal anti-retaliation protections, cross-training of staff at each agency, broader interagency communication and information sharing, and coordinated investigations and enforcement of the respective laws. So I think employers really need to be paying attention to this. Employers really should be preparing to handle inspections that implicate both the NLRB and OSHA regulations, and they need to cross-train their appropriate management on the relevant aspects of the OSHA Act and the National Labor Relations Act, particularly as they relate to anti-retaliation provisions contained in both of those acts. Now, really significantly, Phil, in the event that there's a, under this new Memorandum of Understanding, the agencies are trying to advocate that when there is an OSHA inspection, that a representative of the union should be allowed to accompany OSHA in its walk around of the facility. And so that represents something very significant here. It's really designed to empower the unions and to sort of make them have a little bit of third-party oversight.
Bert, let's just slow it on for a minute. So obviously they would have that right if they were already a unionized facility.
Well,
so are you referring to if this is a non-represented facility, they may still have the ability to invite OSHA in to represent them as a group of employees, or not OSHA, but the union?
Yeah,
I need some clarity where you're going with that.
Sure, not necessarily. So what they would have in a non-union facility is they would have the right to have a third party accompany the OSHA inspector on the inspection.
And that could be a union representative.
Exactly. Could be a union representative. But even now, or historically, when OSHA shows up, the union representative, somebody from the union, does not really have a right to accompany OSHA on the walk-around inspection. And so what they're trying to say is that now somebody who's a third party, even from a union, might be able to come in and accompany the OSHA inspector on the inspection along with the employer's representative. So we want to be careful about that. We want to make sure that employers are prepared to deal with that, because again, you don't want a OSHA inspection to turn into a union organizing campaign.
Right. I think that's where I was going. If it's not already organized, then this adds a layer of complication to it.
It does, for sure.
Yeah.
The next one I want to chat about, and we'll just do this one really quickly, is
so Bert, before you move on, let's just stay with that. I think this brings up the importance that if OSHA shows up at our door, following the protocols that you should have predetermined, and we want to add to those protocols what to do if these requests are made.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that's obviously when I was a safety professional, and if I had OSHA show up at the door, I had a list of protocols and how we would manage the visit, if you will. And that may or may not include contacting our legal representative, but maybe more so than ever now, that might be important, particularly if there's going to be a request for third-party accompaniment to this.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right, Phil. All right, so the next one I want to chat about real quickly is just something that happened a couple days ago, and that is that the Senate rejected President Biden's Department of Labor training arm pick after a long wait. So somebody named Jose Rodriguez, who had been nominated back in July of 2021, he was nominated to head up the Employment and Training Administration, which is the largest Department of Labor sub-agency. It controls roughly 3/4 of the Department of Labor's total appropriations. Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat from West Virginia, who we've talked about many times on the program, and Bob Menendez, a Democrat from New Jersey, voted against Rodriguez. Due to other folks who weren't there to vote, the chamber voted 44-51 to not advance him for a final confirmation vote. And so typically nominees only go to the floor if they have the necessary votes to clear the procedural hurdle to end the debate in the nomination. That's not always the ending result. Biden's first wage and hour administrator pick, David Wheel, also failed at this stage in the process in 2022. Manchin specifically said he had concerns about the nominee's political activism and lack of experience. And so I think, again, this is a pretty significant blow to the Department of Labor here in rejecting Rodriguez.
Is there, Bert, I'm just not familiar with this arm, this branch that you're referring to. What is it that they oversight and see?
Well, so it's the Employment and Training Administration. And again, they control roughly 2/3 of the budget. So they're really in charge of the nation's workforce development system. And they also oversee the federal state unemployment insurance system, which of course came under heavy criticism for a spike in unemployment fraud during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure. And then the last one I want to talk about here, Phil, I know we get accused oftentimes of not being supportive of unions, and I think you and I may have a little bit of a differing opinion here, but I just want to mention that some recent contracts that unions have been negotiating in particular employment sectors, in particular out in Hollywood, or the recent casino labor deal, really show how unions are focusing on artificial intelligence in the workplace. So you've got the Las Vegas casino employees and the Hollywood writers and actors, and their contracts that they've recently negotiated really aim to control the use of artificial intelligence in the workplace and really trying to make sure that AI does not eliminate their jobs. And I actually think that's a good space for the unions to be in, trying to put some parameters on the use of AI so that the labor market has time to adjust to AI coming into the workplace and it doesn't result in mass displacement of employees.
Yeah, and see, I feel differently. I'm like, bring on the AI. Let's embrace it with, arms wide open. This is, to me, there's no stopping it. I mean, the genie is already out of the bottle, and I don't know how we tell businesses you cannot or should not, in a capital system like we have, pursue cost reductions and efficient. You should not pursue cost reductions. You should not pursue efficiencies. That's where I side from.
Well, I agree with you because I am a capitalist through and through, but and importantly, none of these agreements ban employers from using AI in the workplace, but they put up guardrails for how employers roll out the new technology and set rules for how it affects workers. So the unions are focusing not just on preventing job losses, but really on how the technology might devalue workers' jobs and give employers more power in the workplace. So by example, the Writers Guild primarily focused on controlling the use of generative AI in projects. And under their agreement that they reached a month or so ago, writers can choose to use AI when working on screenplays if the company consents, but they cannot be forced to use it. And any work produced by AI is not considered quote unquote literary material under the agreement. And AI is not considered to be a writer, which means human writers will still maintain rights and pay under the agreement, even if AI is involved at some stage of the process. And again, I think the significant point here is that they're trying to make sure that as AI gets phased into the workplace, that it doesn't result in mass displacement of workers, and really trying to make for a more orderly and measured implementation of AI in the workplace. And the casino deal that was recently ratified with Wynn Resorts, MGM, and Caesars, they're also trying to make sure that that employees, when employers decide to use AI, there must be 6 months notice before the employer uses a technology that could disrupt jobs, and give workers whose jobs are replaced by technology $2,000 for every year that they were on the job. Again, they're trying to make sure that there are some guardrails that are being put up.
Yeah, no, that's I understand that position. I don't believe it's the right thing for businesses. But I do understand the position. I'm all about protecting jobs, but I'm also in the side that I think it will end up creating as many jobs as it displaces. Now, may not be of the same skill, the same trade, and I do understand that. And I think we have to be sensitive to those things as we move along through society for sure. Yeah.
All right. So we have agreement on that piece of it, Phil.
Yeah.
That's what I got for you today.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.